Hello and welcome to Achievement Hunting 101. I'm FuFuCuddilyPoof and this is level 222. Joining me tonight is KooshMoose.
I'm ready for it.
Big L. And Matrarch.
I think what you need to do is replace all of our hellos with like Halloween sound effects. Like L is a lightning crash.
Boo!
Koosh can be like a Wilhelm scream. You know.
Ooh, thank you.
That's actually a really good idea.
Wilhelm or won't helm? That is the question.
Oh boy.
Will.
Will
I think
he
we-
or won't he?
We'll jump right into our Patreon question, right, Kenny?
Hmm. Whoa.
Actually, I was going to say, are you guys dressing up for Halloween? Do you have any parties and or are you going trick-or-treating?
I do plan on wearing clothes.
Well, that's no fun. Do you have a costume?
Are you implying that clothes
Costume.
are a costume?
No. No, I will not be dressing up for Easter.
Easter?
Or Halloween either.
All right, so Nate's going as a grumpy old man. How about one of you guys? Any of you dressing up?
My kids are going to be a Hershey bar and a Reese's peanut butter cup.
Okay.
And we spent enough on those costumes that we are definitely not going to dress up ourselves. That's for sure.
So is which one's the Hershey and which one's the Reese's peanut butter cup indicative of which one you like better?
I mean, they both, if we wanted a real good thing, we'd dress up as Smarties. So, obviously.
Wow, you are going to take some crap for that. I love Smarties. So I'm not going to say nothing.
I wanted someone to yell at me.
Somebody's going to yell at you.
I love Smarties.
Yeah. Helen and I went to
Smarties
like
and
Smarties.
nerds.
Yeah, we went to a wrestling show this weekend and they had like a Halloween bit and threw candy into the crowd and it was mostly garbage like nerds and Smarties, but Elle was in his glory. Just, eating these Smarties off the floor.
Garbage.
How dare you call nerds garbage?
Right? Nerds are great.
They're not really. You've been conditioned to
delicious.
think they're great because they're the best of the bad bunch of candy.
No, they're no Necco wafer. Come on now.
Oh my gosh.
I can't argue with that, Michelle. And I have no idea what you just said, Nate.
Necco wafers.
They're
I don't think you
terrible.
can repeat it. Oh, I guess you did repeat it.
It's like, okay, so just imagine when you were back in school. Did they have chalk when you were in school?
Are you talking about?
Yes?
Then yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Just imagine eating chalk.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
I mean, that's kind of like what a Smartie is.
They were basically
Oh, those things. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, they're not bad.
they were basically like Tums but not antacids.
They're like Tums, but even more medicine-y.
They're also like the those chalk candies that you get on Valentine's Day. What
Oh,
are
the hearts?
Hearts?
The hearts.
Oh,
No,
these are
no,
disgusting.
hearts are like 10 times better than Necco wafers.
That's a
Oh.
really low bar. 10 times better than 0 is still 0.
Oh. A low bar is anything with caramel in it. Those are the worst.
Oh, you're so wrong.
Don't even get me started on don't get me started on the people that
Throwing it
eat
to Kenny.
candy
Fun
corn
troll.
with peanuts.
Candy
Ooh,
corn
tell me
of
more.
anything is bad.
Tell me more. So
Candy corn is literal trash tier.
I
It
have
is.
never
It's trash
seen
tier.
these Necco wafers in the wild.
Really?
Really?
Oh,
Mhm.
we used to get them all the time.
Is this from like the 1970s?
Right, that's how we
'Cause I
knew
can
which
see why
neighbor
they'd have
hated
them.
us.
I would say late 80s. Late 80s, early 90s.
Mm.
I don't think I've ever had one, but I definitely recognize them.
I don't remember having one,
They were-
but I remember avoiding them. So I must
They were
have had
created in 1847, so that's why Nate knows them.
one. Mhm.
Are you for real?
Yes, that's what they were. It's an
Well, that's why
acronym.
they're basically chalk, because none of the foods were invented
Right,
yet.
they hadn't invented sugar yet. Yeah.
NECO apparently stands for New England Confectionery Company. And the
Oh.
O is the disc shape.
So it's
They're
New
neck
England's
O's.
fault.
That's terrible.
Oh,
Well,
Damn it,
explains
Saucy. See what you've done to us.
It explains
almost
everything.
is their fault. So there was no question
All right,
this week, right? We're good.
That's the educational portion of the
Should've
show.
been favorite candy.
Yeah, we should have just done that, huh?
No, why did we ask that? Why didn't we talk about favorite candy?
Because you asked about costumes,
They're achievements.
and else children are dressing as candy.
No, I meant like, why didn't we ask that to the patrons instead of the question we have?
We try to stay video
I
game
mean, that
related.
could have been a two-parter.
We try.
I mean,
We do.
we try, but we also haven't had food talk in a couple of weeks, so it's
That's
been
true.
building up. So we're talking about candy.
I know. I
Building
usually
up.
stomp on food talk like 4 sentences into it, so I'm in a good mood. So I let it go. Because there's candy. Half-price candy next Tuesday or whatever it is.
All right. Well, in that case, I guess now we can talk about some video games since we are a video game podcast.
Yay.
80%
And
of the time.
this week's question comes from Freamwhole,
Boo.
and
I mean,
he
boo.
asks a very holiday related question. What is the scariest game you have ever played?
Ah!
I knew you were going to do that. So I'm going to read out a couple of patron questions first. Chip says Phasmophobia. That's it.
Yeah.
I hadn't
Thanks,
heard of this
Chip.
game
Saucy said
until like
Outlast.
3 days ago.
It
This Phasmophobia.
was
Apparently it's like a big
yesterday's-
streamer game or something.
3 days ago.
Yeah, I had no
I guess the
idea.
game
I
thing.
don't know what it is.
Oh, I thought it was a movie. I just ignored that.
That's arachnophobia, dude.
There's other phobias.
Used.
Oh,
John
that game.
Goodman.
I'm looking it up now. Yeah, this is definitely a streamer bait game.
I'm gonna have to ask my son about this.
Yeah, it looks creepy as all get out. I've seen a bunch of like TikTok videos and stuff of players reacting to it and whatnot.
Yeah. 10 out of 10.
And then
Steam.
I've never played it. I don't know much about it, but now that I've looked it
Ooh,
up, it's like, oh,
Kenny.
yeah, it does look scary.
It's a 4-player online co-op psychological horror game. Let's do it.
Do you want to play it?
I mean, if there's achievement.
I don't think there is. I'm like 90% sure this is a Steam only game.
Damn it, Steam. If it
And
was
then
free, I
last
would
patron
try.
question comes from Fug.
They're answers.
He says, huh?
You keep calling them questions. They're answers.
Oh, did I say question? My bad. I meant answer. And then the last answer comes from Fug. He says, I remember Amnesia being fun
Oh, I get it. Wait,
Ugh.
I forget.
because you had no way of fighting back. You were always trying not to get caught and freaking out and running like crazy to get away. Didn't that game just come to Game Pass?
I don't remember.
what game?
There's a collect. Wait, I don't. Which game? Oh,
I walked into that.
no time to explain.
I walked into that. But
Isn't that
as
a
for me,
collection?
I have not played many horror games. I'm not really a horror fan whatsoever. Most recently, I've played Slender, and that had a couple of moments of the jump scares and whatnot that got me. And that's actually up on our YouTube page, or channel, if you want to watch that. But I guess the scariest game I've ever actually played, like all the way through, I would say is Fear, the first one.
Ugh.
I keep meaning to play that.
Which that had a couple. You haven't played it? I actually thought you
Mm-mm.
have played it.
No, it's bean dived forever, talked about boosting it forever, but I've never actually sat down and really played it. So I'm curious to hear your take.
So Fear, if you don't actually know, Fear actually is an acronym. It's First Encounter Assault Recon, and it's a spooky first-person shooter, jump scare game. I'm not going to go into any details, spoiler territory, since you want to play it at least. Yeah, it's as far as a first-person shooter goes. I think it came out in 2006, if I'm correct, and I mean it was good at the time. I'm sure now it feels a little dated, but it's not like it's unplayable. It's still a good game if to go back to. But yeah, there was a couple of jump scares that really got me. And well, I guess this isn't spoiler because it's literally on the front of the case. But like the main antagonist is like this little girl named Alma, and she's creepy.
Spoilers.
She is completely and totally creepy. And I might have actually told you this story before, but one of the things that was funny about this is I was playing this game once, and going through jump scares, getting me. This little girl's freaking me out, and I go somewheres, and I'm back in like these back hallways. It's dark, no one's around me, and I'm just kind of like replaying the game in my head because I'm really into it at the time. I'm really liking it. Thinking about, all right, what's next? Where would I be going next? Trying to get just replaying what I was just playing in my head. And one of my friends, like little sisters, who was at the time was like 10 years old, about the same age as the girl in the game, comes quietly walking up to me, and I turn around, and like as soon as we lock eyes, she goes, "Hi, Kenny," and I about jumped out of my skin because here I'm thinking about this game in my head. We're in the back of like this hallway where it's completely dark, and there's just this little girl, dark hair. It just she didn't mean it. She didn't mean to scare me, but I about died. Gave me a heart attack. Yeah, that would be my spookiest game that I've played, both actually playing it and not playing the game.
I think atmosphere is so important in spooky games, like games that attempt to be spooky but don't correctly create that atmosphere. They're not. So the whole thing with spooky games, if you're not into spooky games like certain Moose, you have to be able to immerse yourself into them. And if you're not going to be able to do that, you're never really going to get the full effect that they're trying to get on you, unfortunately. But that's okay. It's there. There's plenty of other gaming choices, but that's very specific to that genre. You need that good headphones, good TV, all that other stuff.
Oh yeah. And the few games of that I do play, they're spooky. Have to have headphones on. You got to play them at night. Turn off the lights. You gotta have the environment to play.
Did I scare you? I was trying to scare you.
He's trying to spook you like the little girl from Fear.
Yeah, because you look just like a little girl.
Thank you. I got my pigtails on.
All right, let's go to Michelle next.
Alrighty, I will read first. I'll read Freem's response, since he asked the question, and usually when you ask the question, it's because you have a built-in answer. So Freem says, "I just finished The Forgotten City, and there were some unexpected scary things in there. But the most terrifying thing for me was playing Resident Evil 4 in college. It was a huge screen, and I was way too close to it, got completely sucked in, and the scares hit extra hard. I don't like being scared, which is weird from a guy that does zombie games, so I stay away from those type of games. The other scariest one was Indivisible. I started it knowing there were unobtainables. Womp womp. I've heard a lot of good about The Forgotten City. So what's a huge screen
when he was in college? 16 inches?
Well, no. There were still like projection screens and things like that would be plenty large enough.
Oh.
That's not impossible. He wasn't in college in 1952.
Like you sneak into the AV room and you steal the projector. You play some Resident Evil 4.
Maybe so.
What's an AV room?
Is that a real question?
No, of course that's not a real question.
It's interesting to choose Resident Evil 4. I don't know if Freem had experience with other Resident Evil games, because 4, I think if there was a complaint about 4 at the times, that was more actiony and less sort of establishing like that scary environment. Like, I mean, we've told the story in the podcast before that Elle had me sit down and play Resident Evil 1, and I really struggled because I can't handle tank controls because I haven't played with tank controls in a long time.
No one likes them.
Inversion.
You leave me alone. But the whole point in Elle having me play the game was first to experience it, but to tell me nothing about that scene at the beginning where the dog jumps out at you. Even playing the PlayStation version, with the way PlayStation 1 graphics just haven't aged well. It's like that's
No.
just visibly. But still, like where you're at and first exploring this space and that dog jumping out at me, it got me. It got me very good. So, Ford, to my recollection, didn't have a lot of that sort of thing. So I'm interested in the fact that was what was picked. But I don't know if Freem had played the others. Let me move on to Legohead. Legohead said that he had 2 games that have made him jump out of his skin. One was a scream in Dead Space. And a person behind you in BioShock. So he had 2 specific moments. But for an actual scary game, it has to be Emily Wants to Play. Fairly poor graphics, but somehow always had me on edge, even after I stopped playing. I get that. Did you play? I know, Elle, you played Emily Wants to Play. I don't know if Kenny, if you, or Koosh, if either of you have played that marvelous game.
Nope.
I think I dived in.
Yeah, it's...
No, I didn't dive. I was thinking Layers of Fear. I dived Layers of Fear.
Good. I'll talk about that more when it's my turn.
About Layers of Fear?
No.
Oh, about Emily Wants to Play?
Emily Wants to Play.
Okay, so I'll come back to it there then. But I can see why that's the case. The graphics aren't the whole thing. It's, again, about atmosphere and sound design and the tension of the moment. So I completely get where Legohead is coming from there. And then finally, Vulgar shares that he'll go with Eternal Darkness. I like that it messes with the player. And oh my goodness. Yes. This would Eternal Darkness is usually my pick for this question if it's something where we can go outside of Xbox. It was a GameCube game, and I played it a long time ago, so I don't remember the specifics. But the hook of the game was that there were 2 distinct like health meters. One was your health, and the other was your sanity. So as you went through the game, if you did things that impacted your sanity, like the walls would start bleeding, the room would start twisting, like the physical effects in the game would change. And the way that it did it was...
That's so cool.
It was so effective too. Like I think there was one scene like when your sanity meter gets really high and like your character's head rolls off and starts quoting Shakespeare. And it's so like bizarre, but you're in this sort of moment there because the construction of the game is really interesting. I mean, too, it's unfortunately Eternal Darkness is a game that's going to be lost forever to time, I think, because of licensing issues. I'm pretty sure it was a Silicon Knights game, and Silicon Knights went under after everything that happened with what was it, the Viking game? I can't remember the name of it. I actually liked the game too for what it was, but yeah, they went under after they got caught using the Unreal Engine without crediting and all stuff. So that license just is gone, and Eternal Darkness is something that's going to be locked up on emulators at best forever, which is a real shame. But if you like scary games and can access that one, totally do. Excellent choice. What was the name of that game?
Yeah, if I'm trying to find it. If I remember correctly, I've never actually played this game, but I've heard of it. Is that the game where like it would it'll look like it was turning the volume up and down?
Yeah, there was all sorts of stuff like that where it would mess with you. And like to a lesser extent, Metal Gear Solid had some of that with the Psycho Mantis character. But the whole framing of Eternal Darkness was just that, your character losing their sanity. And the game I was thinking about was Too Human. That's the game that caused that company to go down. But yeah, it's unfortunate. But so good. Yeah, Kenny, if you can find an emulator that runs it well, I totally recommend it.
Well, I mean, I have my GameCube, so if I can find it.
Oh well, I don't think it's one of those games that's crazy expensive, but I could be wrong. I've never looked at the secondary market for it.
I know it is like a
I think it is.
Is it
classic? I guess.
Yes, it's very much one of those.
Call it. I don't know if that's the right word for it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know there's a lot of people that when this game pops up or this question pops up, mentions that game, and that's how I know of it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I definitely would not have played it at the time when it was released.
I definitely see copies on eBay for like $25-$40. It's not one of those crazy high valuation kind of games. You'd have to do more research, obviously. That's
awful.
Obviously a quick look, but it's accessible. Some games of that era are definitely not.
I'm seeing like 60 to 100, so I like your
same.
eBay better.
Right? Your $45 that you saw was a bid.
You in the
Yeah.
Argentinian eBay?
I mean, I see one that's it's $25 plus $13 of delivery, so it comes out to $40. But anyway. Oh, it might also be Japanese. Well then.
That would do it.
Oh, dude.
Mhm.
Wow.
And here I was about to buy that and try to flip it for 60.
I didn't realize it was ported to Japan. That was never even in my my thinking.
Okay. But let's see. Let's go to L next.
Hello, L next. So circling back to Emily Wants to Play, I definitely told the story probably a while ago, so I'll tell it again. Yeah, there's little bits and pieces of what everyone has said. So definitely Resident Evil on the PlayStation is the one that comes to mind, but nothing really stands out as scary until you start playing with headphones on, and
That's fair.
Yeah, like you can get immersed so much more. And with Emily Wants to Play, I intentionally turned off the lights, put on the headphones, and I allowed myself to get scared. It's okay to get scared. Not a big deal. So the thing with Emily Wants to Play, though, is everything's randomized, so you don't even know what's going to happen and what's going to jump out at you and when. And even knowing something's going to jump out at you, it's like, oh, that was scary. But ultimately, I got scared, and then I just burst out laughing because I thought it was hilarious. I just don't like that game because it's hard. I cannot get past a certain point.
See, I've come to the conclusion, because I tend to do that too when I encounter scary things. I laugh, or like if I'm on a roller coaster, I don't scream, I laugh. I just think it's a fear response. Like my brain got it all mixed up, and instead of screaming at scary things, I chuckle.
Oh no, I got
But
scared
I don't think it's
first,
funny.
and then I laughed at myself.
Okay, that's fair.
No, I laughed at myself.
Emily Wants to Play is
I got scared.
it's good attention, and that's what it comes down to. Now, when you're playing that last hour, it gets so frustrating at a point that you stop being scared because you're just like, you just want to get through it and be done with it. But up to that point, and like you said already, Elle, you need to have headphones on. You need to be listening because that's also the core of the gameplay in Emily Wants to Play. You get audio cues for what to look out for. But when you hear the doll laugh, and that one means that you have to turn around and get that doll on camera, like you immediately feel like your pressure go up because you're swinging the camera around to try to see her. Or in the first minutes, or if you find the flashlight, you have a much better run than you do if you don't have the flashlight. And the flashlight doesn't always spawn in the same place. So there's a lot that's not great, but creating the atmosphere of something that will scare you. If someone doesn't get scared, you're not going to get scared. But like you said, Elle, if you're willing to allow yourself to do that, it'll do that, and it's good for that.
Right.
Sounds very much like how Slender is.
It's fascinating, though, how most people who answered the question immediately went right to horror games, and I don't play horror games, but like, you want to know what games are categorized as horror games? Left 4 Dead. Has anybody ever been scared playing Left 4 Dead besides playing with me? I don't think so.
There's been a few times I remember where
Maybe
like when you're playing multiplayer and like I turn around at the exact moment when a hunter is jumping on me, and it's just like
all right, maybe.
Well, it's sort of a
but
definition.
that's about it.
Of,
I mean, yeah, it's not scary,
right? Exactly. Horror doesn't mean that it has to be scary, or doesn't mean that it has to be scary. Like it's not a discussion we've had, but that's typically the assumption when you ask someone if they're into horror stuff is, do you like things that scare you? And maybe that's not all it is. Maybe just the atmosphere being a scary setting, even if it doesn't scare you, is enough to be horror.
Like Dead Rising and Dead Island are considered horror games. Those are just games with zombies.
Mm-hmm.
Some people
it's a horror
the gore
atmosphere. But
Gears of War has a lot of gore.
Scary.
Is that a horror game?
It's the setting that you're in.
Sure. Something like Alan Wake, a little more atmospheric, stuff like that.
I mean, like you said with Gears of War, Halo's the same way. Halo is by no means a horror game, but there are like horror-ish elements with like the Flood, especially when they first pop up. You would never consider that a horror game, but it's definitely spooky.
And Master Chief's butt. I mean, that's pretty scary. Creature spelled backwards says, I'm not really one for playing horror games, so I don't have many to choose from. Dead Space is probably the best horror game in terms of actual gameplay and story. As for which one had me more on edge, I'm going to go with Blair Witch. It wasn't the greatest game, but it certainly had me puckered for a lot of it. It gets the edge over Dead Space in the fear ranks because at least in Dead Space you can blast the gits that jump out on you rather than just running away. I think we'll need footnotes for some of these words. Wild West 08 says, I don't play a lot of horror games, not my genre. Okay. First time I played BioShock, here we go. It had its moments that were freaky. And doing the no light run on Blair Witch was similar. And GT3 Option Fan says, as well, I don't play a lot of scary games. But I'll say probably my answer would be something like Anna on the 360. And if you've never played that, it's essentially a puzzle game in a haunted house. Nothing really ever happens that you really need to be afraid of, but it's the anticipation of something that could happen that got me. Mm-hmm. Games like Dead Space, Resident Evil, BioShock have their moments, but when you have weapons to fight back or get killed just to restart, that anticipatory feeling goes away. Now that's interesting.
That's a very valid point there.
Maybe get
just
scared
the
the first
that
time.
I could fail and have to restart, or something could jump out at you. It's a tension builder, and that's scary in and of itself.
Oh, absolutely. And the best movies and games do that. It's the music, it's the atmosphere.
Yeah, that take reminds me very much of like my feelings about Layers of Fear. Layers of Fear is a walking sim. But what it does well is all that building of tension. Like there are so many parts I remember in the game. Like if you're watching a horror movie, right, it's all, you hear the violins and the pitch gets higher and higher and higher until you get to the payoff moment. And Layers of Fear was really good about things like that where there wouldn't be a payoff. So you got really amped up and ready for this thing to happen, and you'd open the door and it would just be a door. And then when you were coming down from that, then the thing would get you.
I do remember that.
And but it's the same thing too, right? You're defenseless. Like you find a hairbrush in a drawer. It's not really in your inventory. So if something does pop out at you, there's really nothing you're going to do. You're just kind of exposed. That's a really, really good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Dead Space popped up a lot. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I know, Michelle, you played that one.
Yes.
Does that strike you as a scary game?
What Dead Space did excellently was made you feel alone. And in horror, I think scary stuff, horror stuff works best when there's that sense of isolation. And playing a game is different than watching a movie. You can be invested in movies, in shows, but you're watching, you're always passive. In a game, your hand is on the controller and you're actually controlling the environment, what's happening. And in Dead Space, you always feel alone, except for this one person who talks to you. And just like, some other people touch on, so I don't want to steal anyone's thunder in their answer. Dead Space did a really good job of putting you there, but also making this really incredible environment where, like, you're in the middle of space. There's no one out there. There are these strange creatures attacking you, but same thing, they'll come and attack you, and then you'll just have moments of quiet and calm, and you'll start to explore things, and then a window pops out. And it does all of that so well, but it's also against that sense of, while you do have weapons, you don't have any backup. No one's coming to save you. So it's excellent at that sort of thing.
Dead Space is a game that it gets brought up a lot, especially now because they're having the remake. And like, I feel like I should play it, but I never did, because back in the 360, I know there was a demo of it, and there was some point, it wasn't a demo that I played. I remember watching, I guess this is kind of timely. I remember watching G4 TV and them doing a review on the game, and they showed some point of where you had to, I don't know exactly what it was, but you had to like drill something out of your eye, and like you had to physically like maneuver the drill.
Yep.
And for me, I hate anything with eyes.
Yep.
Eyes to me are the absolute worst. And I wear contacts, but I've been doing that for years. When I first got my contacts, it took me 45 minutes to put one in because I can't touch my eye. Eyes are a big no-go for me. And like Michelle, how you were saying, if you're watching a movie and I know someone's thumbs are about to go in somebody's eyes, I look away because I cannot take that.
Right.
But if I have to play the game, I can't look away. I have to do it. And when I saw that, I'm like, okay, well, that's a no-go for me. I can't play Dead Space if I have to do that.
A friend of mine and I will still occasionally be like, remember the eye poke machine? Like it's one of those scenes where and it's exactly what you just said. You have to do that. It's not a scene you watch. You have to do that. And so you're sitting there like, I don't want to do this. This is awful. But you have to, because you have to advance the story. And that's just awesome design all the way around. As terrible as it sounds, it's because it's doing its job. Which again,
100%.
Dead Space is the first game was great. The second game was great. People are pretty split down the middle about which one they like more, and it's for distinct and totally valid reasons on both. And then 3 happened. So I'm excited about the relaunch, and I'm excited about this sort of bringing the first game up, and I'm so ready for it. I'm curious to see what happens next. We saw what happened with Mirror's Edge, right? And that was sort of the contemporary to Dead Space. They came out at sort of the same time and were both kind of surprise successes for EA at the time. And Mirror's Edge didn't go great. Not that the game was poor, but it just didn't have that kind of pickup. So I am hopeful for Dead Space. I cannot wait to revisit it. Unfortunately, just like a lot of these games, you can only experience them new once. So it will be sort of a shame to go in knowing kind of some of the stuff that's coming. But I didn't replay it after that first time, so I'm excited to go back and kind of see things fresh with what I know, because the game does also a good job of like breadcrumbs, where if you know what to look for, it's setting up stuff further on. So cannot wait for this to come back out.
All right. Well, in that case, let's go to Nate. I know you're a horror enthusiast.
Love it. Chewy on Ice says, I'll echo some other comments. Dead Space probably has been the best mix of tension, jumps, and body horror on Xbox for me. Great setting, atmosphere, story, and gameplay helps too. For something more recent, I played Soma this month and finally had that, and that had a great creepy and overbearing sense of dread. The creatures were also pretty freaky and gave you that same helpless hide and seek vibe as Amnesia. But I played it on safe mode, so they weren't an actual threat. MDP73 says, Rocket League, yep, whatever that game is. I can't remember right now. He says, actually, Queen's Quest, simul-playing Queen's Quest 5, which is horrible.
How dare you, sir?
Hawkeye Barry says, Alien Isolation. Funny that you mentioned isolation being a scary thing. Takes like 5 chapters to build up the atmosphere and suspense to get you ready for the most intense cat and mouse game of all time. Unless you have the weapon that breaks the game, you are never safe and cannot hurt the alien. You either hide or die. The alien is a boomerang that constantly comes back to you. So yeah, it's no secret. I'm not a fan of horror games or horror movies. Like when I was growing up, we would get together and we'd rent stuff from Blockbuster and we'd watch all the horror movies, ranging from like Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween to, I Spit on Your Grave and horrible things like that. I watched stuff like that, but just was never something I would choose. I'd much rather go watch something, like The Gods Must Be Crazy or something silly like that. That was my style. So yeah, scary games, not really for me. No spoilers, but I thought that, at least for me, a really good scary game was What Remains of Edith Finch. And if you've played that, I'll just say it's mostly tension in that game. It's all tension. It's like, oh, I think something scary is going to happen, and then it may or may not. As for the scariest game I've ever played, I don't tend to stick around once I find out that they're super scary. Resident Evil had, classic, that hallway with the dogs. Yes, that thing. Very scary.
I meant to say the sound goes the music stops during that part. You're just walking.
I don't even remember. I passed out. So
oh, stop! You have a. What could be more scary than having a daughter? Like, come on.
I would say the
this
medium.
is not that scary.
I would say the medium was probably, for me, that was pretty scary. I did not like the parts with that. Was it Troy Baker? His thing that he voiced was really freaky. Did not like that. I forced myself to play it because it was leaving Game Pass. I did not enjoy that game, and I hate played it to get through it. What I find funny is that Dante's Inferno is a horror game, apparently.
That's
interesting. It's an action horror.
Well, I have a question. As you mentioned,
Nate.
The medium.
Oh.
So I'm with you on the medium. Like the parts where you're getting chased by sort of the demon in the shadow world area. They were freaky in and of themselves, and then the controls were kind of a little wonky, and there were sometimes camera things which made it even more terrifying because I wasn't always sure if I could actually physically make the game do what I wanted. But if the atmosphere didn't bother you, I know you don't typically like scary things, but if the atmosphere itself was like, okay, this is okay, like Layers of Fear is basically that. You know, Bloober Team, I think, developed both. And I think where the medium failed was at the parts where it tried to be actiony. They're a very good team at creating environment and just like how things can feel spooky. They didn't really prove that they were a great team at creating a great game that actually acted like a game, which makes me concerned about the future of Silent Hill. But that's another. Oh, I didn't even mention Silent Hill. That's a whole other story. So I don't know if you've played Layers of Fear, but again, if just the atmosphere was okay and the sense of tension, especially in a game where you can't die, really, it just is. You can't lose. It's just meant to give you a little scare every now and again. Maybe you could dip your toe in those waters if you're feeling up to it.
Maybe. I would say probably the thing that was, second most scary about that creature was the fact that it was pretty easy to get attacked by him, and then you have to redo the achievement. You have to redo those runs because you lost the achievement for not being caught. That's pretty scary too. That added to the tension for sure. So, Elle, it sounded like you had a question, Elle? You want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to ask if you get, if you're getting freaked out by a game like the medium, do you turn down the sound? And if so, does that help you? Or does that make it
number
worse?
one, I never listen to game sound.
Stop it! Don't you dare! I know you're doing that on purpose.
Of course, I listen to game sound. That's ridiculous. I don't normally turn. I don't think of that as a coping. I just say I would much rather be playing a Metroidvania or a platformer or something. Mm-hmm. So I tend to not even start those games. So I don't have any coping mechanisms for them.
Okay. Help.
Like, I don't need to play Five Nights at Freddy's. Like, no, thank you.
True.
But that's just me. And speaking of scary, we've scared Kenny away. He is gone. So we will continue on with our game showcase.
Oh, wait a minute. I had one more thing I wanted to say.
Of course you do. Please go on.
Because this is Big L. I wanted to quickly second Soma that Chewy, I believe, mentioned, and plug our game thingy that we did on. I think it's called the Game Thingy.
Yes.
Yeah. The Game Thingy, the Game Club. Yes.
We worked for months to come up with that title.
On the YouTube thingy, yes.
It's called the Waka's Game Thingy. I believe Soma's coming to Game Pass.
Yes.
Play Soma and listen to the Soma Game Club. It'll tell you where to stop playing, and then you could listen. And there was good discussions about that game. You could turn off you could turn on safe mode so the enemies can't hurt you, but it's still got very good atmosphere and some puzzle solving and stuff like that.
Is it not scary if you turn on safe mode? Is it like just ridiculous, or
I kind of wish I didn't
does it
turn
change
on safe
the
mode just
gameplay?
to see. You're still hiding from them, and I don't know. I still acted like they were going to hurt me.
Right. I think that it's another game that's really good at presenting environment, and the implication that something awful might happen, whether or not you have the ability to be harmed, is, I think, sufficient to get through it and experience the game in a way that doesn't make you too twitchy about it. So I think it was fine to experience that way.
All right.
And then I was going to ask Michelle about BioShock one last time. Make me play this game, Michelle. Tell me it was good. It was scary. It still holds up.
Here's L.
I'll do it.
Here is the deal with BioShock.
Oh.
You can't play it piecemeal. You need, if you're going to play the game the way that it is best enjoyed, you have to block out 2 hours a night or 2 hours every other night and play it consistently with the lights off and the sound up and immerse yourself into the world of Rapture. And if you're playing it a little bit here and a little bit there to achievements, the game does suck because you're missing everything that's awesome about it. The atmosphere of Rapture is a lot of it. And you have to keep in mind, too, it plays like a game of its era. Why as a jump button doesn't make any sense. And you're going to feel every bit of that playing it today. So you have to forgive those things about the game if you're really going to give it a chance to understand why people love it. And if you don't feel like you can do that, there's no sense putting your time into it.
Aye, Cap.
There you go.
Speaking of Captain, you captaining the ship there, Nate?
Captain what? Andy?
Captaining the ship?
Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
Oh, yes. I was going to say, before we lose any more hosts, let's continue on to our game showcase. And tell us why we shouldn't be scared of your game, Matrarch.
Well, you shouldn't be scared of my game because it's not scary. That's not very convincing. But I, a few weeks ago, Nate, you recommended a couple of games for me to pick up, and I did. I picked up Indigo 7, and I talked about that a couple weeks ago. And so for this week, I played Marble Duel, which was the other game that was recommended. So thank you for both of those recommendations.
You're welcome.
Marble Duel is a Zuma-like, but just like many of these Zuma-likes, it's not a total on-the-nose copy. It does bring in some other elements. So the story of Marble Duel is you play as Evie, a 10-year-old who was orphaned in very, very tiny text that was difficult to read even on a big screen. But then when you actually get into the core of the game, the text is fine. She, at some point around being 10, decides she's going to walk into a cupboard, and that cupboard's in this magical land where people use spheres to battle each other. And so you have Marble Duel. The game is framed where on the top is the opponent, on the bottom you're playing, and you take turns and try to come up with better chains and whatnot. But each colored sphere has a different effect. So green spheres heal you, red spheres do damage. Purple spheres add extra damage to your damage spheres when you hit them. Blue gives you shields. So it's kind of cool because you're playing a little strategically. The marbles don't keep moving like they would in a Zuma type game. They are static. So once they are there, you're able to take your time and assess your moves. You typically only get 2 shots, but if you make a chain of 3 or more, you can get more. So it's kind of cool. It's a little bit of like a strategy Zuma. It's just a collection of levels. It feels like a mobile game would, where you play a level, you get 1 to 3 stars, you move to the next level, but there's no time gating or anything like that. It's been pretty enjoyable so far. Based on the game stages, I'm probably about, I don't know, maybe like 20% through it. I've got 8 achievements in it. None of them are rare or particularly hard. It has a decent TA ratio, but I think it's similar to Indigo in that it's just not tracked by a whole lot of people. None of the achievements are rare on Xbox. But yeah, I think of the two, of Indigo and Marble Duel, I actually am enjoying this one more, which wasn't my expectation when I jumped into it. So thank you for the recommendation. This one's been a good time.
No problems. I have a question. I'm
Sure.
sending you a picture right now. If you're on the TA site and you're looking at the screenshots, it's the 5th screenshot. I don't think you spoke to this. Maybe I missed it.
No,
can you tell
I didn't.
me why you're flying a plane?
So I
Okay.
have not experienced
Explain
this
this.
yet. I am not sure 100% where you do. So there's a series of achievements on the list for playing different mini games. I don't see those mini games. There is a multiplayer mode. You do have to plug in a second controller to access it, and I haven't taken the time to do that yet. So I don't know if these mini games are kind of locked up in that multiplayer mode, or if these mini games are things you experience as you go further through the campaign. Because you remember, was it Axel? No, it was like was it Axel and Pixel maybe, or one of those where like as you go through the game, you opened up a couple of like really terrible mini games, or was it the Disney Fairyland Adventures? I'm not doing well with the memory today. I think it was
Axel
that
Pixel,
one.
Yeah.
Okay, it was Axel and Pixel. It may be similar to that. Like as you go through it, you open up these different mini games. So the picture that Koosh sent me, which is again this like airplane and birds, I have not seen this yet. I don't know exactly where it's accessed. So hopefully by the time we reconvene in when I join you in a couple weeks, I'll know. But I haven't seen this yet.
Okay.
And there are no
it
guides
looks
on
more
TA.
like a shmup. It looks a lot more like a shmup than a like a Zuma or the other game series that I'm not recalling right now. Yeah. So
Like Sparkle
I
or
was
whatever.
very curious about this. Yeah, Sparkle is the one I was thinking.
And like I said, the only thing I can assume, because this doesn't even look like it's multiplayer, is that these are mini games in the vein of Axel and Pixel that don't match any of the rest of the core gameplay, but open up for whatever reason as you play. I just don't know yet. And once again, it's tracked by so few people, there are no solutions. So I probably could go find a guide on Steam or whatever, but I'm just going to play.
Gotcha.
Oh, one other thing I didn't mention. As you play through, you earn points. So you get the most points for the first star on every level, and then you get additional for second and third. And you can actually use these points to upgrade different statistics. You can give yourself more life. You can make your attack more powerful. And you can respec at any time. So if you play an early stage and you only get 2 stars, earn some more points, respec up into whatever you think you need to do better there, and then just go back and redo it. Which, the fact that you can respec at any point makes it so not stressful. I hate it when you have those games with different talent trees, and it's like, well, you better choose wisely because you can never go back. So that's actually really cool, and you don't have to like undo the whole thing. You can just take one level away from something and redistribute it somewhere else. So as it combined these different elements, like it might get long in the tooth, maybe it's got too many levels. I don't know all that yet, but I'm liking what I see so far, and it's really easy to pick up and play.
Okay. Yeah, and looking through the achievements, I see, it does mention specifically mini games. One of them is for the airplane mini game, so I think we've solved it. We've cracked that nut, so I'm not scared. L.
That's a lot of nuts, yes.
Please tell us about your game showcase. But not that second one. That second one looks horrible, but please continue.
I'm glad you asked. Well, I been doing my UHH head-to-head thing, and I got let's say a completion in Puyo Puyo Champions. So we'll talk about that.
That's difficult.
Yeah, it is difficult. I did a really good job. I got lots of skill, and I was able to earn lots of achievements. And I had like a marathon session overnight. It was amazing.
Michelle, would you like to chime in on Elle's achievement?
wait a minute.
I mean, I guess the good news for me is I didn't have to be involved in it.
Okay.
What do you mean?
Tisk,
Everything
tisk.
fair and square by myself.
Joining the dark side.
A test.
Tisk, tisk.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but
I don't have a problem with you having a nephew. But Elle, our champion gatekeeper.
Yes, I have adopted a nephew. I've never told anyone not to use a nephew. As long as you don't use it for as long as it's just for grinding, not for skill related things. I mean, come on.
Family grew by one member.
When Elle's on here next week talking about how he beat all the songs on Expert on Guitar Hero. No, I'm good with that now too.
Don't worry, I will still gatekeep and tell everyone how this new stupid airy thing putting in your keyboard is absolutely ridiculous, and I'm sure Nate's doing that right now while we're recording. But
so, how is the new member of your family?
Nate. the new member is great. But actually, I wasn't even going to talk about that. I was going to talk about how that inspired me to play more puzzle games, because I actually had fun playing Puyo Puyo. There was a couple of achievements I had to do legit, and I did them. It was fun. And, since Michelle is number 3 in New York in puzzle games, I'm looking at where I am. I'm number 17. I gotta get up there. That's not good enough for me. I see, like, Mike Pitch is number 9, and he's not he's no good. So I have a couple of first impressions games. The first one is called Metropolis Lux Obscura, and this is a game came out a few years ago by Sometimes You. And usually games from Sometimes You are an easy 1K, something like Energy Cycle or like When I Go the North and stuff like that. Now this game got what's the word? I don't know, infamous, or it came in the news for having some nudity in it, where if people recorded the game or captured game footage, they got like maybe a temporary ban or something like that. They were getting in trouble for this. So I'm like, okay. All I knew about this game is, there'd be some nudity in it. But what I didn't realize is that this game is pretty filthy. This game's full of cursing, full of seedy bars and gambling and all kinds of stuff's going on. So this is pretty fun. But usually games like this are not puzzle games. Games like this are usually not, what do you call them? Color 3 gem color. What's the name for them?
Match 3.
Match 3.
Match 3 games, yes. Yeah. Usually they're not those type of games. So you're like, get into a fight with someone at the bar, and then they're going to kill you, and then you get challenged to a game of Match 3. So it's pretty funny in that regard. And one cool thing about the Match 3 is, instead of just going one tile to the left, right, up, or down, you can go across the whole row or column and move stuff around all the way. And that's pretty cool. I enjoyed that difference.
Well, hold on a second. Does that mean you can move one gem by itself, or you slide the whole row?
You slide the gem.
Mm-hmm.
So just like the one gem moves and you plop it where you want it.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you remember this or not, Michelle. I know you
I do.
years back.
Actually, mostly what I remember about the game, because I don't recall any Match 3s that quite played that way. So it's kind of cool in that regard that it was a little bit something different and unique. But also I remember somewhat frequently early in the game, and I mean early, it's only like a 3-hour game, but not seeing that well, because I'm so used to playing Match 3s where they have to be adjacent to each other. So there would be so many times where I'm like, oh man, I missed this easy thing because I wasn't used to it. But that's not a knock on the game. That's just getting used to how it plays a little differently. But that I distinctly remember that because it's unique.
Yeah, and there's one other part that I'm still trying to figure out. There are police badges on the screen, and occasionally if you make a match around it, you lose hit points. I'm still trying to figure out how it works, because sometimes I lose hit points and sometimes I don't. I don't know if you remember that or not, but that was the only part that confused me. So you have hit points, so you just have to defeat your opponent before they defeat you. Depending on which enemy you're fighting, sometimes it'll say enemy will attack in 2 turns or 3 turns, so you could get a few hits in before they get to go. There are perks after you beat a match. You can choose between some perks, and there is a walkthrough on TA, and the walkthrough tells you to pick the one to have fewer police badges, because those can hurt you. And you can choose to get health sometimes instead of attacking, but I've found that whenever I get health, I just get attacked next turn anyway, and it just was for naught. It was just to defeat the purpose. So that was one I've started. It looks like there are multiple playthroughs where you choose different choices, and I think each playthrough is around 40 minutes. So I'm assuming with the 3 to 4 hour estimate, you have to go through 3 or 4 times and pick different choices.
Now, I remember back when this game was in the news, and it was also rumored that it might be delisted. That was the big thing. It's like, oh, there's this, this hullabaloo with like streaming it, and there's nudity,
Yeah.
and it might be delisted. So if you want this game, go get it. And it's still in the
That's called
store.
a scare tactic.
Yes. I bought it then.
And I guess it worked.
Yes.
Yeah,
it
it's
did.
$8 game. I mean, it's fully voice acted. It's just don't play it with the kiddies around. Normally, a game like this, you would play with the kids around. Oh, it's a match 3. Tyler walks.
Yeah, I mean, this type
he's
of
like,
nudity.
What's this, Dad?
This type of nudity and disgustingness, and roughness really belongs on the Switch, not on the Xbox.
Remember when Nintendo was the wholesome one? Couldn't even have blood in Mortal Kombat. Now
Times have changed.
The fun stuff. I mean, the gross. Times they have changed. And yes, I had told Nate about this other game called Pirates of First Star. And I don't even remember buying this game, but apparently I did, or Michelle did, or one of us did. I'm hoping it was on sale. And it is a similar game to Puyo Puyo. You're walking around town, so you start off in this village, and it kind of reminded me of the Final Fantasy PlayStation games, where like 8, where you could challenge people to card games, walking around. And you challenge them to a game of match 3, basically. But in this game, it also has RPG elements, and they'll have different exclamation points over their head. So there'll be a green one for easy, and I guess like yellow for medium and red for hard, stuff like that. And as you defeat them, you'll get experience and money, and you can buy different items and stuff like that. So there's a little more to this one. However, the match 3 portion of the game is horrible. Michelle, I really want you to try this game.
Oh dear.
It is the only match 3 game I have ever played. Oh, actually,
that's it. Just the
I'm
only
sorry,
match
not
3
match
game
3.
you've
It's
ever
like
played.
Puyo Puyo.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm saying it wrong. It's like Puyo Puyo. It's like a Tetris style where the pieces fall from the top.
okay.
So your
But you have to map.
nephew can play this, is what you're saying.
I don't think so. No. It's the only game I've played where there's only one button you can use to rotate the pieces. You can't use the other button to rotate it the other way. So you can only rotate in one direction. So right off the top, that's terrible. Have you ever encountered a game like this, Michelle? I think you have. Like, imagine Tetris, you can only rotate one way.
So fun fact, I very rarely rotate the other direction. Very rarely. I almost always rotate only one way. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I think it's just a product of playing younger. I don't recall that you could rotate it both ways. Like if you're playing on like an Atari, for example, like you had one button. Like, so I really like mostly played it in my head, just rotating one direction. And I will do that sometimes now because I've played enough like that I'll do this as a strategy, but Tetris, I'm not particularly quick when I play Tetris. I'm more deliberate, and that's how I'm able to do okay. So I don't know that would bother me as much as you might think it would. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, for Tetris, I remember doing that as a kid also, just never rotating. But when you're playing a game like this and you see what piece is coming next, you're like, okay, that just goes one to the other way, and you drop down. And when you're playing versus, you're in a hurry. You got to get that in there quickly.
Oh no, you just press the button 3 times. You're good to go.
3 times. So this game is a whopping 329 starters on TA. It's a $20 game. It should probably not be. I'm really hoping I got this on. I think I probably won this in a giveaway, I think. The achievements are all over the place. There's a walkthrough, and like the second achievement in the walkthrough is a 1.38 ratio just for fighting this one random fight. So the ratios are all over the place. Looks like our boy Elroy has done this game, so makes me feel better. I can do this. But I'm trying to branch out a little bit, play some puzzle games. Both games, Pirates of First Star and Metropolis Lux Obscura, have walkthroughs on TA, so you can just follow along. I like when games like that have walkthroughs, so they're not playing the game for you. You still have to win the battles and stuff like that. They'll just kind of give you advice on where to go next so you don't miss anything. So that's always nice. Because
Can we just take 1 minute to discuss the visuals of Pirates of First Star?
Yes, go for it.
Please. How would you describe the visuals in Pirates of First Star?
Crazy. They are like Paper Mario, Paper Mache-esque, and there's like floating eyes on all the characters and googly eyes. And
I think I described it to you when we were talking about this, like the old Thumb Wars. If you remember the old Thumb Wars little shorts that they did about Star Wars, it was a thumb, and then they would dress the thumb up like Princess Leia or like Luke.
Yes, they would superimpose a face on the thumb. And yeah, that's kind of like what they would look like.
It either looks like that or like a McDonald's chicken nugget with eyes. That's what these characters look like to me. And so when you told me that you were playing a match 3 game with these chicken nugget thumbs, I did not believe you. And then I looked at all the screenshots, and I definitely didn't believe you, because none of the screenshots on TA show a match 3 game. They just show you walking around in this weird world of anthropomorphized chicken nuggets. It's wow. Yeah. So this to me just looked horrible.
It's not great, but I am looking forward to playing more and seeing what the game has to offer. It's 6 to 8 hours, so I'm not quite sure what to expect there.
Well, far be it from me to compliment you or to throw you, some sort of praise. Well done on not just playing this game and not just looking at it and saying, "Oh no, never," but actually trying it. Because by the cover, this thing is a disaster.
I mean, I'm not a smart man. I will play whatever.
Okay.
Like I don't actively dislike most games. What bothers me is saying, okay, why am I playing this instead of playing, Bioshock or whatever AAA game I haven't gotten to. That
Modern Warfare 3, yeah.
Oh yeah, that one. That's a great one. Oh man, Modern Warfare 3. Are Call of Duty games still a thing? I'm not sure. Not quite sure.
Not in this showcase.
No. That's what all the kids play. All the kids talk about it. So that's my puzzle showcase. Showcase showdown.
Well, then I shall tell you about a game that I played.
Oh, you're glad you asked.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad I grew to me. So,
yay, delirious.
We are in a very strange point in the month where there's stuff leaving Game Pass and there's server shutdowns going on. So I have been playing based on the schedule, based on the calendar, and not necessarily playing for things that are good to talk about. Like, oh, should I talk about this game that's leaving Game Pass and you have no time to now play it? No, I probably shouldn't do that. And should I talk about this game where the servers are shutting down on the 9th of next month? Yeah, I probably shouldn't do that either. So instead, what I decided to do was to pick up a game that I was going to talk about as a suggestion on the sales and actually play it before I recommended the game.
Wow.
Yeah, weird, right?
Wow.
So I went ahead and I invested heavily for you, dear listener, in the game Boreal Tenebrae. Tenebrae. Got rid of my notes. Tenebrae. Yes. Boreal Tenebrae. Now that translates roughly in my Googling or Binging to Northern Darkness. And this game, let me just say that when I first looked at the screenshots, this is what I do. When I see a game for sale, I go ahead and I just start looking through the screenshots they have on TA. And this game is weird, but it's stylishly weird, which is intriguing to me. So I was drawn in by this visual style, and it is, I would definitely call it like a lo-fi retro style. This is an adventure game. It's kind of hard to follow. And the reason it's hard to follow is because you don't play as one character. You play as different characters. And each one of those different characters pretty much takes place in a different environment. So you'll start off with this one character who's looking for her sister, and her sister is missing. And you're walking around, and there are these weird static screens, static blips that just invade the world. And the story's hard to follow. So when this happens, you basically just start looking around in this one screen, and you're just trying to distract a policeman. So at that point, I realized, oh, okay, this is kind of a point and click type adventure. You're going around, you're going to pick up these various things in the environment, and you're going to start combining them in your inventory. It's like, okay, I understand this. This is like your typical kind of LucasArts thing with this weird, stylish, veneer over top of it. And that's basically what the game is. You'll be moving around from location to location as you unlock clues, or as you unlock the next bit of, okay, I applied, this item to that spot, that thing. Okay, I'm rewarded with a disc or a tape. And sometimes it takes me to a new location. Sometimes I have to go back home. And at home, you have a TV / DVD player that you can put those video discs into. And when you do that, you basically get teleported to a new location where you play as a different character sometimes, most times. And you can then progress the story. Now, your inventory is shared between all of these people. So if you find an item in the very first area, that item is available to the other person at the other location. So you'll be bouncing around from place to place saying, oh, I can't do this because I don't have a flashlight or a source of light. And so a couple screens later, you find a flashlight. And okay, now I can go back to that area and I can do this. And that's kind of how this game works. There are collectibles in the forms of the discs that we just talked about, and also those tapes that we talked about. And there are achievements tied specifically to getting those. I really like and dislike the art style all at the same time. It's as if they spent all this time on these cool little models, and 3D models, and they animated them really well. And then they just kind of like applied a filter over top of that, made it kind of look more janky than it actually was. But just the animations they have in the faces is certainly in a couple of these cutscenes, I was really kind of blown away with. I was like, this is better than the quality that they're presenting. And I'm not really quite sure why they're doing that. But I'm kind of having a good time with it. TA says it's about 2 to 3 hours. There is no walkthrough on TA, but there are solution videos. There are walkthrough videos in the solutions. And if you prefer a text walkthrough, you can go out to Steam. Steam has a pretty good walkthrough that just has you go from place to place and tells you where all the collectibles are and when achievements should pop and things like that. I've put about 2 hours into it myself, and only just looked at the walkthrough, just kind of check it out and see if I had missed anything at this point. And yeah, it is an interesting adventure game. And I'm just going to go ahead and transition straight into sales, because I am recommending this if any of that sounds interesting to you at all. This game is $3.14 down from $7. Like I said, it's an adventure game, 10 achievements. And yeah, I don't think it's bad for that price. If it was $7, I might feel a little bit different. But at $3.14, this game does not feel too bad. Since we're talking sales, I'm going to move on to my next recommendation, and that's Res Please. It's just $3 down from $15. This is a platformer with 107 starts and 0 completions. There are no unobtainables reported yet. You play as a pair of wizards who navigate through dungeons with the ability to resurrect each other using Lazarus stones. Every time you resurrect your partner, you then use up a stone, and there are more of them found in the dungeon, so you can keep finding them and then keep moving along and along. And it reminds me a bit of Chariot in that way, in that you're playing both people, and you're kind of using them to solve, how do you move this chariot from here to here? In this case, it's how do I move myself and my partner through this dungeon? And it looks kind of interesting. Like, for instance, you have to cross the spike pit, so there's nothing around that you can use to get across that spike pit. So you take your buddy and you throw him into the spikes, and then he dies. And then his corpse is impaled on the spikes, and you can jump on top of that as a platform and then move over to the next side. And then you can resurrect your buddy, and he resurrects right next to you. So, he exits the spikes, pops up next to you. You pick up a Lazarus stone, and you continue on. And that is Res Please. And it looks interesting. If you like platformers and you like first completions, this one seems to be available. And like I said, no one said that there are unobtainables. So, Matrarch, do you have any sales to recommend?
I do have one, but I wanted to just take one step back real quick. With Res Please, I almost put that on my list because I got all excited that it was a res. And then I realized it's not that res. And that Res Please was sort of like one of those Fortnite style like phrases that like the kids would use, like resurrect me please, like not Fortnite, that's not the right one. And it dawned on me, I'm like, I did not look into
it's an MMO.
Sorry. But yeah, so again, I looked at it, I clicked on the tile, and I was like, oh, this definitely isn't that. And then I read it again, I'm like, oh, I can distinctly remember hearing kids in the library like saying res please, like, so okay, I get it. So I hadn't even heard the description, but then when you described how it is, that's clever. Because that's the whole point, right? You're using your buddy, and the fact that he can be res to get through puzzles. So that sounds cool.
Yeah, it's a weird mechanic.
Yeah. So I am just gonna recommend Demon's Tier Plus, which I talked about last week, because it's I guess buddy games. Xenon Valkyrie Plus and Riddled Corpses EX were both on sale last week. I was so excited about Demon's Tier Plus being on sale. I didn't actually write the sales price down, but I believe it's $2.99, down from $9.99.
It is. Yep.
But I went through all this last week, so if you're interested in those thoughts, definitely, you can check that out. But it's enjoyable roguelite. I still haven't finished it because I can get through the last dungeon on the tier 3 difficulty, but that last boss keeps getting me, and mostly because I get very twitchy. I will do that eventually, though. But if you bought the other 2 games last week and then you get this one, it's way cheaper than the 3-pack they're in. Well worth $3.
Elle, what about you? Do you have any sales?
Well, before I tell you my game, the Ghost of Kenny recommends Cannon Brawl. But, we smart people don't like strategy and real-time games, so that's $3.49 down from $10. That seems definitely like a Kenny game.
Yeah, it's basically a Worms, right?
Oh yes, definitely. I totally looked into it, and it's definitely like Worms.
Did you happen to look at the prices to find out that it is $3.49 down from $10?
I think I said that.
Oh, okay.
I'm watching a video. Nope, not at all like Worms. Nope. This is bonkers. Bonkers, I tell you. Cannon Brawl. I mean, if you're into the genre, it looks interesting. No, it's not like Worms. You're like shooting things. Games like this scare me more than scary games. My game is the world famous Siggy, a fart. From, I always want to say Mussolini. Definitely not. Melusina. That is $2. $2. If you didn't play this game for $5, it's definitely worth it for $2. I mean, the game is no more than half an hour to an hour, but if you don't nail it on the first try, then you get another playthrough at it. That's just a fun platformer. It's got nods to Mario. It's got nods to Ghosts and Goblins. It's a platformer. You're just running around getting coins and doing fun stuff. Yeah, it looked like pretty light this week. I think that usually means some other crazy sales on the horizon. So it wasn't much this week.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll hear more about that, or we'll get some Game Pass news, I'm hoping for, because the news that we do have looks a little spaced out, looks a little barren, so I'm hoping that they're planning some surprises for us. Out now, because of time travel, we have Frog Detective, the entire mystery on PC. We have Gunfire Reborn on cloud, console, and PC. We have Signalis, cloud, console, and PC. And on November 1st, we're getting The Legend of Tianjing. I probably murdered that. I apologize. On console and PC. Great. On November 3rd, we have Ghost Song, which looks like a Vayner. And that's cloud, console, and PC. On November 8th, we have Football Manager 2023. Now, I have no idea which football it is, and I'm going to assume it won't matter because I won't play it anyway. On November 15th, we have Pentiment, which is, I know a lot of people are looking forward to this. It looks interesting. It kind of reminds me of the game you really like, Elle, which recently left. It's cloud, console, and PC. What's the game I'm thinking? The Monty Python-esque.
Procession. Procession.
Yeah, Procession to Calvary. Yeah, it reminds me of that a little bit. Not exactly the same.
I remember seeing that in one of those video things you made us watch.
Yeah, one of the sizzles. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that should be out on November 15th.
I remember.
Next up, we have November 22nd, Gungrave Gore. And it is definitely gory. This is based off of a comic book, I believe. And it looks very stylish. I think there was I think someone in the Discord mentioned that this was on an older system and they liked it there. This looks new and crazy. So I'm definitely going to be checking it out. Cloud, console, and PC. It is a shooter, in case you're wondering. November 30th, we have Warhammer 40,000 Darktide on the PC. I know some people like that. We know everything that's leaving this month, and hopefully we'll hear more. But some other things have been added in the near future to be leaving, and those are on November 8th. We are losing Football Manager 2022 Xbox Edition and the PC version. And once again, I don't know if that's football or soccer, because it would require research. And
they're always soccer.
If you have a question, ask Hatton. I'm sure he knows. And so now, with that out of the way, it is time to move on to Hash Brags, also known as Brag Camp. Matrarch, would you like to take it away?
I would. I want to talk about completions. Luke 17,000 has hit 150 completed games. Elle never hit 200 completed games, which is a funny sentence if you don't have the context of it being a Brag Camp read. Ben L72 has 450 completed games. Septic Earl is 450 completed games. Legohead 1977 hit 850 completed. Chewy on Ice has 950 completed games. And Thrash Forever says, oh, your milestones are all so cute, as he hits 2,050 completed games. Good job, everyone.
In streaks, Desert Fox 420 with 50-day achievement win streak, as does, because there's only one. I haven't looked too far ahead. EOJ with the 50. Luke 17,000K with a 300-day achievement win streak. Ems Fergie with a 350-day achievement win streak. Wild West 08 with 450 days, Sincere Seeker 6 with 950, Elroy OMJ with 1,900, and celebrating a 9-year achievement win streak is Sniped by a Gurwan.
I knew you were going to say that.
Not too predictable. I'm sorry. Sniped by a girl. In gamer score, we
Girls
have
don't play
Magical
video games.
Mars with 150,000. We have Expovos, It's About Time with
I knew you were
550,000.
going to say that.
We have NBA. No, you didn't. We have NBA Kirkland with 850,000. We have Z Drunken Monkeys with 1,100,000, and Lord of Dookie 69 with 1,300,000.
Yeah, getting back to that Desert Fox 0420, it's amazing how many people I see on Xbox who have April 20th birthdays. It's just fascinating.
Mm-hmm. I knew
Quite
you
a
were going to say that.
coincidence, I must. Oh dear, what have we started? In leaderboards, Chewy on Ice is now in the top 50 of the England completed games leaderboard for Adventures by a Wookiee. Domain is in the top 500 of the Gamerscore leaderboard for Fightings. Rutarek is in the top 50 of the TA leaderboard for Turn-Based. Icy Thrasher, who we friended today, is in the top 10 of the TA leaderboard for Turn-Based. Kitty Skies in the top 20,000 of the TA leaderboard for Shooters. Lucas 1987, top 100 of the Gamerscore leaderboard for RPGs. Luke 17,000 in the top 500 of the TA Difference leaderboard for Hack and Slash. Retro Chief, big one here, number 1 for the USA TA Difference leaderboard for Point and Click, and
Nicely
top 5
done.
overall. So hopefully he'll, I don't know how far he is from number 1 overall. Hopefully he'll get there. Sabin
awesome.
Rothschild, yes, is in the top 1,000 of the TA Difference leaderboard for RPGs. And Thrash Forever is now second in the Europe completed games leaderboard for beat 'em ups. We had a couple little brags. We have Big Timer 2047 was the first person on TA to complete the new Tales from the Borderlands game. So that's pretty cool. We talked about it briefly in the Brightcap channel, and I didn't realize that it was not quite the same as the original Tales from the Borderlands. It's there's multiple endings, and it is point and clicky, but not telltale. So I did not know that, but congrats on being the first one to finish that. And then there was the name that I was scared to say. It's like Pishibalau. Completed Mirror's Edge and went back and went back and purchased the DLC for it. And I don't remember if we talked about that. There's some EA server shutdowns happening. But
Oh, yeah. The 9th, right? November 9th?
No.
Pretty sure
This
there's
is a
some happening on
different
the 9th.
batch for January with NBA Jam. And I think that's the only one with multiplayer. There was Shank 2, Mirror's Edge, and one more.
Yeah, something else I think we talked about that last week. Yeah.
Yeah. So he picked, but I like, you convinced him to go pick it up and get it done. And it is done.
Nice. Speaking of
Good
being
job,
done.
people. Oh boy.
And also, we lost one party member, but I'm not scared. That was a show. If you'd like to follow us in other places, we're also known as AH101 on Twitch. We're known as Achievements 101 on Twitter, on Discord, where a lot of stuff happens, and you're really missing out if you haven't checked. We are AH101 on discord.io. On Patreon, we are Achievement Hunting 101. And thanks to our patrons, as always, they're the reason that the show is continuing. It's their fault. You can blame them for providing us with monetary support so we can put on all these contests, so we can continue buying new mics and things like that. On YouTube, On YouTube, we are Achievement Hunting 101. And we would once again like to thank you all for listening and tuning in, hopefully next week. Class dismissed.
So long.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, they're the bye-byes.
Res, please.